My relationship experience, well, I've really only had one long-term relationship of 9 years, and that ended maybe 11 years ago. And often people say, so how can you be talking about being a relationship coach when it's been so long that you have been single? I believe relationships are stretching far more than with partners. But I think for me, a big part of relationships is actually loving yourself. And when I stepped into that relationship, I definitely did not love myself. And I definitely didn't think I had the confidence or the abilities to support myself and to feel good about myself. Whilst on the other hand, I believe my partner at that time, when I looked up at him, he looked popular, he looked confident, he was kind of my rock. He's a person that I needed. But also what I've learned afterwards is that he needed me. He needed people to need him so he could get validated. So it was really a perfect situation. He was a strong person and I was kind of leaning on him. A very dependent relationship, you can say that. And I ended up in what I call the relationship bubble. We did do everything together. We didn't really have any separate friends. All of his friends became our friends. My friends became our friends. And I lost a lot of my identity actually in that relationship. Until at one point when we first moved to Australia, I was very, very, very unhappy. To truth be told, the relationship already wasn't working very well. And for me, it was an opportunity to move to Australia, something that I wanted to do since I was about 14 or 15 years old. And I also thought that maybe with him being in his home environment, instead of alone in London, it would help and strengthen the relationship. We survived for another 2 or 3 years after that. The defining moment for me was I was unhappy. I didn't like where we lived. I hated my job. I don't know, I had no friends. My life was, his life was my life now. So there was nothing for me that I really enjoyed in my life. And I ended up saying to him, when he came to me and said, Marcus, what can I do to make you happy? I said, there's nothing you can do to make me happy. I have to make myself happy. It's not something you can do. And I think for me, it was a defining moment for two reasons. First of all, it prompted me into action to really start to do something about my life. Around the same time, I also ended up having shingles and I went to see a doctor who said to me, well, this probably comes because you're stressed, because that's the situation I was in. The second thing that I feel that really happened in that relationship was that it cut the bond between me and him. Because what happened is whilst I was leaning on him for support, I stopped doing that. And that had serious consequences in the relationship because he needed to be validated by me needing him, and so that stopped. And I became more focused on the things that I wanted to do to grow and develop myself. And that was really very important because what he then started to do is he started to try to control me with money. One of my things I will never forget, he says, I cancelled my economist membership because you're not earning money, because I ended up studying photography. And it made me laugh because we had no mortgage payments. He was earning over $150,000 a year, I think, because he never actually told me how much money he made. So that's what he started to do. But the more independent I became, the less the relationship worked and the more disengaged he became because he didn't get validated in that relationship anymore by me needing him. Of course, what would have been really great is if we could have done working together by creating connection points so we could grow together. But it never happened. And after the relationship broke up, I actually realized that for me, there's a few things that are important. Exercise for mental health, spirituality, creativity, he didn't appreciate any of these things about me. He didn't like my photography. I was studying photography. He didn't believe in my spirituality. He didn't think I was very humorous. So yeah, I kind of ended up realizing there was not much he actually valued about the things that make me as a person. And I think that is really what I learned from that relationship. The interesting thing is, for a long time, I actually believed the relationship was really strong, but it's only afterwards, when I discovered myself and who I was as a person, that's when the relationship started to go wrong. Yeah, and so that was my main relationship. Have I had a few relationships since then? Yeah, I've dated here and there, but the truth is I've struggled for years after the relationship, financially or finding my own path. So probably for people to step into my life, probably not being the best thing. You learn from these things, and I think that's what I learned from that relationship, is that it is really important that you have each your own purpose, but then also that you can help and support each other in developing that purpose. I think that's why that relationship has been so important and powerful for me.